This guided practice video will show you examples of internet sources and ask you to evaluate the sources using the CREP test. You will get the most out of this video if you pause when instructed, answer the questions posed, and then resume the video to check your answers. Let's say we are completing a research assignment on the legal drinking age in the United States. Let's take a deeper look at a source we found and use the CREP test to determine if it is a good source for our assignment. The source we're going to look at is an article from Thrillist.com. If you haven't done so, click on the link to the article below this video in your course Blackboard and read the article thoroughly. This will help you better evaluate the article. The C in CREP stands for currency. Let's see if we can find a publication date. Oh, there it is, March 29th, 2016. That certainly is recent, so this article is definitely not outdated. The R in CREP test stands for reliability. Is this information in this article supported by evidence? Pause the video and answer this question. Then resume when you are ready. So we're looking to see if the information is supported by evidence. So let's see what we can find. Well, there appears to be information from a law in this section, the National Minimum Drinking Age Act. There's also some experience from the author's parents right here in this section. And there are some quotes and statistics from the Mothers Against Drunk Driving organization. We have some quotes from doctors down here in the European section. And we also have reference to a study from the Prevention Research Center. So I would say that yes, the author's claim is supported by evidence. When looking at reliability, we also want to find out if the information can be confirmed by other sources. So look at this article and answer that question. Can this information be confirmed by other sources? Pause the video and then resume once you have answered that question. Okay, so we need to know if the information can be confirmed by other sources. Well, what's nice about this article is that everything that is referenced is a link. So we can click on the links to see where this author gets all of his information. I'm going to choose this link down here about the number of reported cases of alcohol poisoning. If I click on that, I am brought to CNN's website. And so that's a news source. That's a pretty credible, usually those are pretty credible sources. So yes, I think that the information in this particular article can be confirmed by other sources. When looking at reliability, we also want to consider if the information is biased or balanced. Does the author show us both points of view of the issue, or does the author only focus on one side and only focus on it very strongly? It's your turn to figure that out. So pause the video, look at the article and answer that question, and then resume the video when you're ready. Does this author present both sides of the issue? I went back to an earlier part of the article where we have some statistics from the Mothers Against Drunk Driving organization, and these statistics support the idea of keeping the drinking age at 21. However, below that, the author has an entire section on the lower drinking age in Europe and how drinking is handled in a more responsible way in European countries. This supports the other side of the issue, that the drinking age can successfully be lowered. So because of that, I would say that the information presented here is well balanced and not biased. So I would say that this article is reliable. So we've already looked at currency and reliability in our CREP test. So now it's time to move on to A. The A is for authority. Pause the video and answer these three questions. Who wrote the article? Does the author have any credentials? And is the author an expert? Resume the video when you've answered these three questions. So my first question under authority is who wrote the article? I'm scrolling back to the top here and I see we have a name, Will Fulton. If I click on his name, I am taken to his author page on Thrillist website and it simply says, Will Fulton is a staff writer at Thrillist and a passionate doer of other stuff. For more info, you'll have to do a free background check. Well, this doesn't really tell us anything about him. We don't know what his background is. We don't know what his level of expertise is. We don't know what his education is. So we're not given any information as to what his credentials are or if he's in any way an expert on drunk driving or on lowering the drinking age. So because of that, I would say that when we're considering author, this might not be the best author for a paper that we would want, for a source we would want to use in a paper. Now that we've looked at the author, it's time to look at the P in CRAP test. And remember, there are two P's. The first P is for purpose. There are several questions we can ask ourselves when considering the purpose, and we're going to go through these one at a time. So the first question is, who is the intended audience for this article? Pause the video to answer the question and resume when you are ready. So who is the intended audience here? To answer this, I'm going to take a closer look at the website where the article is published, Thrillist.com. If we click the link to the home page directly from the article, we can see that this appears to be a site dedicated to travel and food, drink, and entertainment. There are also ads from other companies on this site. Right here at the top, I have an ad from McDonald's. So I'd say the purpose of this site is simply to entertain, which then means the purpose of the article is also to entertain. Our next question in P for purpose is, what is the author's intent? So go back to the article and try to answer this question and then resume the video when you have an answer. So what is the author's intent? Well, when you look at the information from the entire article, it appears that the information is unbiased and includes both sides of the issue. It includes some research to back up why the drinking age should stay at 21, and it includes some research to say that it would be okay if we lower the drinking age to 18. If we look at the article's introduction, though, it appears that the author is completely for lowering the drinking age. He says 18-year-olds can vote, operate a motor vehicle, pay taxes, marry, become a legal guardian, etc., etc. And so one could easily argue that one or many of these bears way more responsibility than drinking alcohol. He also talks about there are 3 states attempting to introduce legislation that would lower the drinking age back to 18, and are we ready to do that? So at first glance, it seems that the author is for lowering the drinking age to 18. Then you read through all of his research through where he presents both sides of the issue, and then we get down to his conclusion at the end. His conclusion, it presents a very different perspective. His conclusion says that after he's gone through the process of researching this issue more closely, he has changed his mind. So I would say that the author's intent here was to inform the public on both sides of the issue. So the information wasn't at all biased. The third question we want to ask ourselves when we consider purpose is, does the author have a vested interest? So pause the video and answer that question and then resume when you're ready. Does the author have a vested interest? Well, he doesn't work for an alcohol company. He's not trying to stir up alcohol sales. He's not claiming to have a relative who was a victim of a drunk driving accident from an underage driver. So I don't think he has a vested interest in the issue of lowering the drinking age himself. However, because he is a staff writer for this particular website, Thrillist.com, he does have a vested interest in getting readers to this site. His job is to present the information in a way that makes us keep reading, but not in a way that convinces us of either side of the issue. So the last thing we should look at in the CRAP test is point of view. What does the author think of the topic? That's the first question we should ask ourselves when considering point of view. Pause the video, come up with an answer, and resume when you're ready. So, what does the author think of this topic? Well, we already looked at the introduction and conclusion and decided that the author started off believing the drinking age should be lowered to 18, but ended up realizing that the drinking age itself is sort of irrelevant to the bigger problem, and that the bigger problem is that people will drink regardless of their legal drinking age. He thinks that stricter driving regulations plus an overall focus on alcohol appreciation early on are needed. And he states that right here in his conclusion. The second thing that you want to ask yourself when considering point of view is this a first-hand account or is this a research-based article? Pause the video to come up with an answer and then resume when you're ready. So, is this a research-based account or is this a first-hand account? Well, this is all research-based. The author here is not explaining anything that he personally has been through. He goes to multiple other sources to gather information. So he is giving us a research-based article, much of the same thing that you would do in writing a research paper. So now that we've considered the entire craft test, we've looked at currency, reliability, authority, purpose, and point of view. Do you think this would be a good source for a research project? Pause the video, answer the question, and then come back when you have an answer. So is this a good source? Well, you always have to be careful with any website that ends in .com because these websites exist to advertise or make money in some way. And this is why it's so critical to apply the craft test to all your sources. There's just too much information out there for you to be able to take any of it at face value. For this source, when I consider how we use the craft test, the author isn't an expert, but he doesn't have any credentials or background information. However, the source is current, it's reliable, and it's unbiased. So overall, I would say that this is an appropriate source for a research project.